I'm Chad Ruthermans,
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
and welcome to NOCLIP Pocket, where dreams come true. Today, we're going to be talking about Dragon's Lair, and Dragon's Lair 2, and also Space Ace, which was developed by Advanced Microcomputer Systems, published by Cinematronics, and created by Don Bluth and Rick Dyer, was released in 1983 for arcades.
And saw a remastered collection on modern systems.
Yes.
But first, if you give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
Well, I had some things I wanted to start with, but now I have to ask the question that I know the answer to already. Is this the oldest game that we've talked about? By like a lot.
Yes?
By like almost a decade.
Like, I know we've talked about doing like Pac-Man or something, but we've never actually dipped that far back.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you want to talk about a game that was released a really long time ago, comparatively, this is one of those things where when you go to an arcade game, it doesn't look so different than it would have, like if it was made more recently.
I mean, that was one of the selling points of this, is just like that it looked like a animated movie.
Yeah.
And not like a pixel
Nightmare.
Yeah, like a more simplistic visuals that you would have had in 1983.
Yeah, I have to imagine that is probably a lot of its success, and I think that we'll confirm that in our discussion.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine, like, being a kid, you go to an arcade and you see fucking asteroids with a triangle that shoots dots at bigger dots, and then you see fucking Don Bluth's, you see Five Will Goes West playing on one of the other computer systems, and you're like, well, shit.
Oh yeah, like we've gone to this arcade themed bar before. They have a bunch of retro arcade games. You know, I'd fucking be playing Dragon's Lair if they had it. You know, like, it's still, I think even today, like, next to other arcade games, it definitely stands out.
Oh yeah, yeah, especially next to like its contemporary.
You're gonna play Joust, or are you gonna play
this like
Dragon's Lair?
Fanciful world of fantasy joy.
You'd probably actually have a better time with Joust, but
You almost certainly would. Because as an adult, I can tell you exactly how many quarters Dragon's Lair would get from me, and it is 1 quarter. It's the number of quarters I would insert into this machine. But yeah, let's talk about the game, and I think that is a great place to start. This game was created by Don Bluth. And Rick Dyer, apparently. And Don Bluth is an animator. He, as you informed me maybe minutes ago at this point, worked for Disney.
Yeah. So, I mean, shouldn't be that surprising if you know about, like, animation history. A lot of the talent back then came from Disney. So, yeah, he worked there for a while and then broke off to do his own thing around the 80s-ish. Yeah, and he made things like Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven, An American Tail,
Right.
etc. The hits keep on coming.
They do.
So yeah, and he had a little bit more of like a mature spin, and that was kind of like his selling point.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at those movies now, and not a movies podcast, but when I go back to watch a Don Bluth movie, which doesn't happen often, but it did happen more often many years ago. I would watch several of these movies like over and over again as a kid. He has a style that's really apparent, both in the movies and in this series of games, and it feels like it's something that is made to be appreciated more as like an older person, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that Don Bluth himself is as old as the universe is.
He's getting up there.
Yeah.
I think pre-pandemic, I think they did these collections and it made him think about Dragon's Lair again. I know there were talks of him actually doing a Dragon's Lair movie, but I feel like that's probably going to have been quashed now.
Yeah.
But that would be pretty sweet. But yeah, like he has a very distinct style that we grew up with. We're like that age. And Yeah, they definitely like it does feel like they're a product of the time they came out in. Like older kids media did have more of an edge to it, and his movies are no exception. Like all of them had something that made you like a little bit uncomfortable as a child. Like even like Secret of Nim, which I just rewatched recently. It's probably the most recent of his movies that I've seen. Has like this part where the main character, Miss Brisby, is like stuck in a bird cage, and she has to like fight her way out of it by like reaching through the bars to unlock the thing. She like cuts herself. Like it's nothing like particularly like upsetting like necessarily, but like it makes you uncomfortable. Like it's distressing.
Yeah, like it's showing like almost realistic bodily harm.
Yeah, and it's like almost like you're seeing something you shouldn't see. Like you kind of want to look the other way and be like, ugh.
Yeah.
So he definitely taps into that, and I think it's definitely a flavor you don't really get anymore.
Mm-hmm. And I like the inclusion of that kind of a thing in the Dragon's Lair games. You played for laughs. Like every death, and there will be a number of them, is a comedic moment. Like it's I feel like it has a dual purpose, because it has the obvious purpose of showing the fail state. Like, you didn't do this in the correct way, therefore Dirk is now a skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it kind of like like many of them just seem to cast blame to the player, where Dirk will look at you angrily as he's ripped apart limb from limb.
Yeah, it definitely feels tongue in cheek. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost like dying. Like they.
It's almost like dying.
It's almost like dying. No, it's like a mix of things where it's like dying. It feels almost like the game at some points, because like there's a unique animation for each one.
Yeah.
So you almost want to see them all.
Especially when it's not costing you money to do it.
So I mean, like you could play it with that in mind, but like at the very least, it's like something to like cushion you dying as you get a unique scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and it gets, so we played all three of the games, and on the port that we played, which is the Switch version, it includes a watch the game feature.
I should have done that.
Yeah.
I meant to, didn't.
I went back and watched all the way through Dragon's Lair 2 and Space Ace, but I didn't go back through. I felt like I saw quite enough of Dragon's Lair 1. When I went through it the first time, but it shows each scene, and then it just shows a montage of every death in a row, which, in addition to being amusing, shows like just how fucking many of these there are. Like, there are probably between 5 and 10 unique animations for each like part of the game, of which there are like 6 or 7 of those. So you're talking like upper double digits of these like 2-second clips of Dirk just being eviscerated in some way, or sometimes just like hugged, which was weird.
Yeah,
they're like, you lose. Okay.
Yeah, some of them have more bite than others.
Quite literally.
But yeah, no, it's impressive the amount of like work that went into some of the details.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see a game like this that sprung forth almost entirely from animation, as opposed to being like a top-down, or it is like a top-down game, as opposed to a bottom-up, like mechanics first. What if we made an adventure game? They said, what if we had a cartoon that you could play? What do you do in that? And they settled on, presumably limited by technology at the time.
Yeah.
Like, you choose what direction the character goes in.
Yeah, and kind of unfortunately informed by arcade design at the time.
Yeah.
But I do, because it's like, it ended up as like a gotcha game where you will die many, 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 many times by design.
Yeah.
As I said, like dying is kind of feels like what the game is sometimes. But I kind of applaud them though for like jumping on the train this early. Like, when did Super Mario Brothers come out? Around the same time?
Yeah, a couple years later.
This is very early in the history of video games, and it feels so unique.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of thing where somebody looks at the the industry and just says, like, what is possible here. And they came up with something that is, like you said, genuinely really unique. It isn't like space shooters were popular because it was it made sense. It was easy to do with the technology because you had
easy to replicate.
Yeah, like you got a black background, that's great. Don't need to waste pixels on animating stuff going by. And there were some more like advanced, quote unquote advanced, more analog style games that featured like a painted background where the pixels were displayed over top of it. But those don't like hold up. You couldn't even really play them now unless you had an actual machine or just like overlaid, like reprogrammed the game essentially. And this is one that actually functions and does what it's supposed to do when you play it now. It's a really cool idea. But on that note, and I feel like we should spend some more time talking about animation.
We'll circle back around.
Yeah, like tie it in because that is the big thing. Do I recommend this game to people? No. Don't ever play this game if your goal is to have a fun time, because you won't, and it isn't a good game. And I just wanted to make sure that was clear, at least my viewpoint going in, because mechanically there's nothing to this game, and what they chose to implement is insanely harsh and unforgiving, and it feels a little dirty because I can just like imagine some guy with a big cigar being like, how do we get the quarters out of those kids' pockets? They only have 0.03 seconds to press the left button here.
This Macho Man Randy Savage.
Brother, I just got elected as a chief CEO of Microcomputer Systems. I don't have a good
That's what his horoscope told him to do.
Yeah.
Invest in software.
Anyway, that's the guy I imagine deciding that the timing windows for these quick time events, is essentially what they are, should be so unfathomably short.
Yeah. I guess if you're... Just to give the other side of the coin of your original statement, if you're a big fan of animation, or if you're the kind of person like me where all the details that aren't the mechanics carry a ton of weight for you, this might be worth a look. It is questionable though. It's riding that line.
Yeah.
Like if this was on sale, I think it would definitely be worth a look. If you're interested in weird, unique games anyway. So lots of caveats.
Yeah.
But it does feel like the margin for error is way too small in the first game. Like there were certain parts where it felt reasonable, and but then there were other parts where it just was like ridiculous. Like the part where you're on the raft, you're going through the rapids, felt like okay. Like it felt like I could react to the prompts on screen and he would do the things he was supposed to do. But the part right before that where you're on the horse, it felt like it would like flash up like go right, and I'd hit right and it'd be like you hit the wall. Like the window, like it just felt like all over the place. Like it felt inconsistent, and that's the biggest sin against it in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the problem, well, in addition to the inconsistency, I think it has two major issues. Because I'm just straight up forgiving the fact that the entire game boils down to press a direction or a button because it came out in 1983. Like, I'm not expecting it to be something on the level of a modern game. I only want something simple, and that's what they gave me, and I'm fine with that. The other problem, in addition to the tight timing windows, is the fact that there are two ways to play the game in the remaster. And it is to either have a little thing on the bottom of the screen, like an overlay, that tells you what button to press, or watch the animation for flashing yellow lights and interpret it in what direction you need to press or the button. And some of it, like some of the time, that's easy to do. The sword flashes, you press sword button. The ceiling flashes, you press up. But a lot of the time, it takes a little bit of thought, And if you have
no time for that.
Zero time to think about anything. So to play it and get to the end of it, to see all of the animation that if you're interested in seeing, we would want you to look at the game to do, you have to not look at any of it and keep your eyes glued on this little indicator, or like you take it in and the game takes a million years to finish and you die with a controller in your hand going, if only I could have learned to go left, right, left, up, A. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the problem that I have with this game mechanically, is that it is not a QuickTime event in the sense that QuickTime events are more fun than this because it is just rote memorization. You just have to remember the order of things and when to do them.
Yeah. We talked about this when we talked about Night Trap from a couple years ago now.
Still holds up.
Yeah, in a fun episode. If you want to actually play the game, if you want to interact with the mechanics, you have to kind of ignore the animation or the video in Night Trap's case. And it's kind of like oil and water. Like, they don't really mix. But I feel like there's really something there, though, to the idea. I just don't think it's ever been done, to my knowledge, anyway.
Right.
But yeah, especially like, it feels even more of a waste in this because you can really feel the craft in animation, and you want to watch and appreciate it. Mm-hmm. It's easier to like be okay with ignoring like the parody B movie footage in Night Trap. Yeah. It is like a weird mix because like I had to do the thing, and I don't know if other people do this, but like where I have to basically like tune out the animation and just focus on the overlay, like literally like a camera, like the overlay is in focus and everything else is blurry.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that's not really the best because like sometimes like what's going on screen is really complicated, and I think by design a lot of the time to try to distract you from like what's important, because the game wants you to put more money in it. And it actually seemed like kind of a they added an extra problem to the game because the overlay flashes in yellow, and there are a few points where something yellow is right underneath of it on screen and you can't see what button you're supposed to push. Yeah. So that seemed like a faux pas.
A bit of a miss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just really very quickly go over this one point.
No, yeah, I said a bunch of things.
Oh, no, that's fine, because it led into this thing that's going to be very short, and then we can move on. We want to focus, I think, mostly on just talking about these games as they exist. But to briefly dive into the port of the game, the Dragon's Lair trilogy, which is a stupid name because it contains two games.
It's not a trilogy. Yeah. It's a spiritual successor or brethren.
Yeah, it's you didn't watch like the 3 Star Wars movies and the fucking Christmas special and go, it's kind of like a Star Wars quadrilogy.
Yeah.
It's like, no, fuck you. I guess the word trilogy just tested well. But you look at the port and you can tell that there's been no effort or consideration put into putting this game onto a console at all. All of the menus just look like DVD menus, including playing like an annoying looping song in the background. And they didn't change the games in any way, because including that weird thing where the buttons flash in a color, there's a beep that you can thankfully turn off that is like the oldest mechanical analog beep sound that I've ever heard in my life. And also the inclusion, just the fact that there is a continue screen. Like, why? It doesn't make a difference. Like, when you die and you are out of lives and you have to go to the continue screen versus when you die and you have lives, you go to the same place when you die. So it doesn't seem to mean anything.
It's because Don Bluth animated it, and he wants it in the game, Chad.
Well, he didn't animate the fucking continue screen because it's just a stock image of Dirk looking.
He drew it, goddammit. Every pencil stroke makes it in.
Apparently. But that's
Spent 2
all...
weeks working on that.
That's all port stuff. We can ignore that and go into the actual game. Because I complained a lot about playing the game. I will say that what it is good at is putting you into a white knuckle frenzy of pressing a single button and the directional pad.
Yeah.
Because I played the game through in one sitting, as you have to do. Like, there's not really another option.
No. And it takes like 35 minutes.
It's very short. And once you go through an area a couple times and have it down, like to muscle memory, it is just like, you fucking, like, you're like, there's that fucking snake.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I gotta hit the A button.
Yeah. If you're anything like me, though, the more times you do a sequence, the harder it makes it. Like, the more likely I am to accidentally fuck up an input.
You're like
I'm
thinking
trying
ahead.
to anticipate it, and then I'm just like, ugh! And then like I hit the wrong button. I'm like, fuck, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, I think I definitely have done that as well. I think Space Ace, which I played today, maybe I was rusty because it's been a long time since I played the first two.
Yeah,
was the one that got me. It was I got to the final sequence, which is like a weird bat fight with the enemy,
right?
And I kept like getting 2 steps ahead, and I almost feel like there's some kind of psychology in like the placement of like the different. I know there can't possibly be.
I think there is a little bit because like I think it has to do with like what's happening on the screen, like the movement of the characters and things, like I think like subconsciously like make you think like the movement's going right, so you're more likely to hit that.
Right,
but
yeah.
then it's not always matching up.
I guess that makes sense because my reasoning was going to be like, that Don Bluth just like made this and sent it in, and then they were like, all right, then we slap the yellow on this and there and ship it out, put it in an arcade cabinet.
I think there was more planning than that.
There probably was. I watched the interview. At no point did they say we planned this.
Sure.
I'm not.
Not like we would do it today.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's more than none.
But yeah, like I'm imagining just being like, okay, nobody's gonna like after you do 2 swords in a row, and then on repeated plays of that sequence, I'm going to be more likely to do 1 sword than because those 2 just melded together in my head.
Yeah, like
it's like when somebody does Simon Says and they're like, up, left, 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 down. You're like, fuck, how many lefts was that?
Yeah. Like, there was one part where, yeah, they do stuff like that, and that's a really good example, where they do the same input over and over, so that when it switches, you might accidentally hit the input again. Because like, there was one part where you're, like, running from, like, some trolls or something. It's like a lava area or something, and, like, the input is up for, like, every time. And then it's, like, right, and it's just, like, you're gonna fuck that up the first time, and you're gonna hit the up button.
It's so hard to memorize that many things in a row.
Yeah,
you know?
and you have to memorize it more in the first one because, as we said, the windows are so tight.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think the windows in the second game are equally tight.
Really?
But but in Space Ace, I thought they were more forgiving. Space Ace has a difficulty setting, which is beautiful.
Yeah, because when I played them all earlier today, like right in a row, and like the input window felt like a full football field in comparison to the first game where it felt like a one-room school building. Or, I don't know. Something very small, a bread box.
Yes.
It felt like so much more lenient. There were like multiple levels in Dragon's Lair 2 I did in one shot. Whereas there was nothing in Dragon's Lair 1 I did in one shot.
I think I mostly got through Space Ace in...
Yeah, Space Ace as well. I think Space Ace was my favorite of the 3 because it felt like it married the bigger timing windows of the second game with like more of like an actual narrative structure of the first.
Yeah.
Because Dragon's Lair 2 just feels like, what weird animation ideas variety hour did I have sitting around the game?
That's such a good... Let's do this.
Okay.
Because Dragon's Lair 1 is from a narrative animation standpoint, is an act of beautiful simplicity. Knight goes to castle, encounters traps. It feels like a Dungeons and Dragons dungeon.
Braves the castle to rescue the princess from the dragon.
Exactly. It's beautiful. I love it. Dragon's Lair 2 is chaos.
Yes.
There's no time to breathe, mechanically or for Dirk, our intrepid hero. And then Space Ace goes back to having a narrative, though it is more complicated.
Yeah.
There's like dialogue in it, and it's never really explained why your character has a button on their wrist that turns them into a giant buff dude. And they don't just have it on all the time.
Yeah. I think that's really fun, though.
Yeah.
I feel like you just put on like a random episode of a TV show that you've never seen before.
Which is also a great way of putting this. Like, there's no, like, character through line that you kind of, like, get when you're playing these games. It's more just like, yeah, you don't know what is happening or why any of it's happening, but you can follow it beat by beat, and by the end you feel like you've learned about this small part of this person's life. And to me, that makes sense for this kind of a game and works well. And then Dragon's Lair 2, quote unquote time warp.
Yeah, it's so weird because like it doesn't have like an opening like establishing scene. It just like cuts right in on like Dirk is sitting at the breakfast table and has like a bunch of siblings who are dressed the same as him, which is kind of funny, but you can't appreciate that detail.
Right, you gotta dodge the
chaos, and like his mom just starts like attacking him for no reason, and then that somehow segues into the princess getting captured again, and Christopher Lloyd plays like this evil wizard who like you then have to chase through all these fantasy realms. Like one of them's like Alice in Wonderland. One of them's like Jack and the Beanstalk or something with cupids. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of, it's just like a weird, like there's no through line other than like princess got captured again, but like the most like ham-fisted, like whatever kind of way.
Yeah, like the second game starts as you described.
And it has no high score or anything. Like there's nothing, there's no bookends. It just kind of happens.
Yep, and you just pass right through it. What's interesting about Dragon's Lair 2 is that, well, okay, first of all, the thing that your mom says at the... Yeah, okay, all right, clip that and then put whatever you want after it. But the thing that your mom says at the beginning of the game is like, she's been kidnapped? So we're just starting from a point where Daphne's been kidnapped and Dirk seems to be okay not doing anything about it. And then he's chased out of the house into the castle. I think the same castle. It has a moat with the same monster in it.
Yeah.
And then finds a time machine. And the game is called Time Warp, but each of the areas you go to are not time periods. There is a dinosaur part. And then there's the Alice in Wonderland part. The Jack and the Beanstalk thing is confusing. There's a sign on a wall that identifies it as Eden.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because there's the snake with the apples.
Yeah, but it says poison fruit, which is not what the apple was. That's like a Disney thing.
Yeah, it's the fruit of knowledge or whatever.
Yeah. And then there's like there are cupids, like not angels that look like it's Cupid. And there's a death animation where if he shoots you, you get little heart pocks that come up all over you. It's so fucking out of nowhere, and none of it makes any sense, and it's so nonstop.
Yeah, like when I finished it, like I didn't realize it was over. Like it just cuts to a screen that's just like secret items.
Right.
Play again? Question mark? It's like, what? Is that the end? Or is this like a thing? It was so abrupt and weird.
Yeah, you like weirdly have an inventory in the pause screen of Dragon's Lair 2. I think I saw some of them, but didn't know how to get them.
I didn't notice them or get them.
Okay, that's fair. Because who the fuck would?
Yeah.
In that hectic fucking pile that game is. But Space Ace is great. I didn't talk about this in the previous two games, but there's like a very old-timey sort of like damsel in distress story through line through all three of these. And in the first game, Daphne, the damsel, is the only character with dialogue.
Yeah.
She's the only person who says anything. Though I do want to shout out whoever did Dirk's lines, in quotes, because they're hysterical. Because the only things that he ever does is just go like, "Whoa!" But it's just delivered in a really funny way that cracks me up every time. In the third game, there's dialogue fucking all over it. And it is fantastic in both of... well, mostly just a bad way. In a bad way that makes me laugh really hard. I love Ace's dialogue because it's just Dexter, but he's got a real deep voice. And Dexter's voice is like up here. He's like, oh, God, jeez. And so you'll pop in and be like, energize. And then you die, and he's just like, far out. It's just so confusing. I love it so much. But there's also a damsel in that game. And she has like marginally more agency in Space Ace.
Yeah, she's like
nice.
Actually a character.
Yeah. But yeah, I love Space Ace mostly for the dialogue.
Yeah, no, it does feel more like a realized version of the idea. But yeah, there's like humor though, like not just in the dialogue, but like in the animations too. Like one thing that stood out to me early in the first game, is like you walk into a room and there's just like a potion like obviously supposed to distract you, and that like just like bubbles. And then you just go right and leave the room. Like, nothing happens. Like, it's just there to fuck with you.
Yep.
Like, I think stuff like that's hysterical.
You can, if you press up instead of right, you will drink the potion and it
just go kill you.
Yeah, like, you, like, dissolve into a skeleton.
I just think that's really funny.
Yeah. No, there's lots of stuff. The first game, the reason I mentioned the dialogue specifically in 3 as being the thing that really got to me. In the first game, the animation is the best in the series, as far as I'm concerned. I think that
I agree.
It's all so good. There's a lot of really creative, like, characters, like little creatures and stuff, who animate in like this very Don Bluth-y, sort of like Slinky-esque way, where characters just kind of like bound around. It's very like, everything is very full motion. Nobody does anything that is subtle. It's always these big dramatic movements.
Well, yeah, in one way that like this is a lot better than something like Night Trap, and it had the luxury of this because it's animated, is that like the clips stitch together nice. Like there you'll see the little hiccups sometimes when it cuts from thing to thing.
Yeah.
For the most part, you don't really notice it. Like it's all pretty seamless, which is like I think really well done, because like it's obviously waiting for you to like put the input to switch the clip. And yeah, it mostly goes over really well.
Yeah, and I think that probably leads into why the second game feels so hectic, is because there just wasn't, they couldn't reasonably have Dirk stop and look at a doorway for a second, because they've already established that like a herd of monster yaks were chasing him through the fucking Cretaceous period. But it's really impressive the way that, especially in the first game, everything sort of like ties together. Are there any particular sections of these games that you wanted to cover?
Oh God, there's so many sections.
There's a lot.
I remember thinking when I got to the end of the first one, thinking that like, oh, like an extended level really is like not what shines with this like gameplay setup, but you know, it's fine because it's the final level. Like it makes it feel more imposing and hard. Apparently they thought the exact opposite, because fucking Dragon's Lair 2 is just like really long sequences that if you mess up you have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So that made the second one more stressful, but it kind of evened out because I thought it was easier to do. But like that stupid Eden Cupid Jack and the Beanstalk level really tripped me up. I did that one a bunch of times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that part is insanely hard. I would say
like
it
the
is
part with the snakes. For some reason, like there's something about the timing with that. It was one of those parts we had to hit the A button a bunch, and we had to hit something else. You fuck it up.
And the snakes all talk the whole time too, which is kind of distracting in this sort of like zone. I wanted to shout out a bit in the first game that I thought was really interesting, and I to this point do not know if what I did made any difference to the game. I know that there are multiple paths, at least in Space Ace, potentially in the second one, but it seems unlikely. But in the first one, I know that there are. There are these segments where you're on a rock that falls and stops briefly at different areas like an elevator. And you can jump off. And I assume that they just gave you multiple options to like give you multiple tries to get somewhere, but I think where you jump off actually does matter, and in what you see next. Probably the worst part about the first game is the fact that it will just repeat sections, but they'll just mirror it. It's a game that really doesn't need padding, because the game is already hard enough without like having to go through even more. But it was interesting to be able to like sort of strategize for like a second in one of these games.
Yeah. Now, I was wondering the same thing. And I do think, it does seem like it matters, but I don't know how much. I just think there's like a couple of options it can pull through. Like, I don't think like not picking the right floor can make the game last like a lot longer because you're not picking the right path or something. I just think it kind of randomizes from a pool of rooms and mirrored versions of those rooms, like what to show you next.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
It seems likely, yeah.
Yeah. No, I kind of like that, though. Like, it does, like, I think you mentioned it earlier, it does kind of make it, like, the first one has, like, a D&D feel. Like, they feel like individual, like, rooms in a dungeon as described to you by, like, a dungeon master. Like, you walk in, but like on fast forward. So you walk into a room, the potion bubbles. Like, what do you do?
Leave.
Roll.
Right, good choice.
Yeah, roll a dexterity or whatever.
I'm totally stealing the Dark Sorcerer with the Tron floor.
Yeah.
For whatever. We should run
the
Dragon's Lair dungeon just in order as a one shot. That would be fun to do.
That would be fun to try to come up with ways to represent all the things that happen.
Except we'd also have to do it in AD&D instead of 5th edition.
Yeah. There's not a lot of combat in the first one. You don't use the sword a lot.
No, not a ton. Which I liked.
Yeah,
I thought it was
too.
cool thematically that Dirk mostly ran away. When you listen to the commentary, they were like, we have this character, Dirk, who's like a knight, but he's kind of bumbling. And I was
so
like...
we called him Dirk.
So we called him Dirk.
Dirk's Bentley.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know if bumbling is the word. I don't know.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. The way that he's animated sells it.
He's like a himbo.
Not as much of a himbo as Ace is, though.
No, definitely not.
I love the fact that every time that you energize into Ace in that game, he has to, like, crack his knuckles. It, like, happens, like, 4 out of the 5 times.
Very Shazam.
It's really good. Do we have 24 frames per second thoughts?
My FPS thoughts are... this was really cool to actually take a look at. I've known about these for a while. I've always been like an animation nerd. I was a big Disney fan growing up and all other animated films. So as soon as I heard about these, I'd wanted to play them, but just had never, gotten around to it, as you do. So yeah, it was really cool to finally play these. They were a little bit shorter than I imagined, but I guess the length makes total sense. Like, you wouldn't want this to go on very long. But yeah, very cool. Like, it looked beautiful. Don Bluth does have a unique style that lends itself really well. And it's cool, like, just to, like, just give him a theme. Like a knight saves a princess from a dragon in a castle, something really simple, and see what he does with it, because he just does fantasy then space, with Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, and they both are really awesome. They just look really cool, and with just a simple concept. So I think there's something to that. Don't overthink your premise, I guess, sometimes. But look really cool, and I think I said similar things about Night Trap. I feel like I'd like to see someone do this idea now, with modern sensibilities, and see if you can do something more with it. I don't think you'd be able to do the exact same thing, where it's just watch a clip and hit a button. But I feel like there's a nugget. There's something in there that it feels like a really cool untapped. I don't know if it would be a full genre or something. I don't know, but the simple thing would be just to apply really good studio animation quality animation to an adventure game or something. But I just feel like there's something more that can highlight the animation like these do, and still be a game.
Yeah.
But that's for someone smarter and better at game design for me to figure out. So very cool, unique curiosity. If you have similar interests to me, if you listen to this and feel like you identify with things I've said, check it out. If this is probably cheap. This is a pretty niche product.
Shockingly not cheap.
Really? Okay.
I think it was $30.
I mean, prestige. Obviously, the price is high. It's what that guy smoking the cigar in the business suit said.
Yeah.
Randy
Savage.
Yeah, Randy Savage said it's got to be $30. Sell it on that name. But I guess then if you can get it on sale, definitely check it out. If you're a big fan of things I've talked about, animation, Don Bluth, niche, arcade, weird, unique games, I would give it a shot. I wasn't disappointed. I was thoroughly entertained for, the 2 hours I played all 3 of these games. But
yeah,
I don't know. I liked it. Good time.
I didn't. Like you were saying, though, I think an important thing to take away from this is I'm not upset that this game exists. I think that this is a really interesting concept, and I'm glad that somebody did it. And the thing that it produced is really interesting to look at. The problem is that I feel like they sort of stapled the game on top of something that didn't need it to be there. Would this animation exist without the game? Probably not. So that is sort of a net positive, but it is not something I would recommend to somebody as a game, as a thing to play. I totally recommend it to people who are interested in the history of games, hand-drawn animation. If you are that kind of a person, I think absolutely check it out. But otherwise, this is one, maybe just watch a YouTube playthrough of it, because you're going to get more or less the same thing out of it, except with less frustration. I don't know. It's cool, though. It is a cool thing, and I am glad to have played it at this point. Now that it's over and I don't have to play it again, it can live in my memory. Thank you for listening to NOCLIP Pocket this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be talking about PlayStation all-time classic, Game Informer's 100th best game of all time, circa the year 2000. Ape Escape. So join us for that. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com or on splattershot.pro. There you can find links to our email address, our Twitter account, the Discord where we talk about the games, and also where we accept suggestions for other games to play. You can go over to our YouTube channel, which hosts all of our old episodes. And after 7 years, we're almost at 100 subscribers.
Just what is it, Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill?
Just push it, yep. I'm surprised we didn't go there in fucking Dragon's Lair too. And you can listen to our old episodes, like the one on Hades, where Sisyphus is there. And
He's not pushing the boulder, though.
No, it kind of just sits around. Or Night Trap, which we mentioned before.
Yeah, Night Trap's really the only thing.
Yeah. Huh.
There's this one game that we've not talked about called called Jotun. Which is all hand-drawn animation, and it looks very much inspired by Don Bluth to me. If you want to go check that out.
Just check out that game.
It's by the studio that made Spiritfarer, which is more popular. But yeah, check out Jotun, because it looks very pretty, and I don't think that many people played it.
Works for me. Maybe we'll talk about it in the future.
I'd like to.
Let us know in the comments or on Discord. Press A to ring that bell, but if you don't do it
quickly,
you will die. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Also, did you notice that they like individually drew Daphne's nipples? It was really weird.
I sure did. I was gonna say this. Okay, hold on. All right, I was gonna say this, but I think you learn through playing these that Don Bluth is an ass man. Because both Daphne and whatever the other girl's name is, like butts, are very accentuated, and not so much their boobs. But they did draw Daphne's nipples, though.
Yeah, which is very strange.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you were clapping.
Oh, so if you could cut that out if you wanted to.
No, okay. I thought you were like, emphasis.
Oh, yeah.
Don Bluth loves
Bluth
the ass.
Loves that ass.
All right.
One clap for each cheek.
Shovel Knight slaps soft ass. This game claps cheeks.
It's the theme for this month.
It is. This is ass month.
Clap that medieval ass.